Professor Chris Smith. Chris graduated from the University of Leeds and did a PhD in Biomaterials, then worked as a postdoctoral research fellow at the Universities of York and recently Exeter, where he lectures, and Chris has travelled up from Exeter today. His research focuses mainly on mechanics and simulation, recently done a lot of work on hybrid and electric powertrains, and now, fortunately, also helping us in the maritime industry. Can we all welcome Professor Chris Smith? Thank you.
I remembered to take my lanyard off, the gentleman in the back, thanks, so you should be able to hear me. Thanks everyone for inviting me up today. I'm actually originally from the northeast, so I often pop up here to come and see family, but for the last 27 years, I was just doing some arithmetic. 27 years I've been down in Exeter in Devon. So talking about pasties, of course, well, we're experts in pasties, so I shall look forward to having a look at Greg's pasties later on. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the stuff I do at the Centre for Future Clean Mobility is on clean powertrains, and we work on maritime systems, heavy land systems, anything really. If it spins and it's heavy and expensive and difficult and uses diesel, we're probably interested in it. So we deliver the powertrain is the bit that makes a wheel or a propeller spin, for those not familiar with it. And that's our world. About 3/4 of what we're doing at the moment is in maritime. So maritime, and I see lots of different sectors. There's a comment there about traditional sectors. Rail is another very traditional sector. I see lots of that. And maritime is really getting its act together. So well done. It's very good. I'm going to say a little bit about the national sort of scene and what I see happening, because I'm quite involved in decarbonisation in maritime in the southwest. And one of the things I want to do is scout out what you guys are doing up here. So I'm very interested in what you're doing. Because I think we don't need to compete with each other, because the opportunities are so vast. I think the Southwest can clearly learn from the Port of Tyne and your green corridor, for instance. There's lots of things we can maybe show you guys as well. So I'm very keen to set up a two-way link. Right, I'm going to start with some figures. I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but these are some figures about diesel. I can't read them here, so I don't suppose you can either. It's SMMT, Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders. They are the Bible for new car sales. And those numbers, which you're struggling to see, for July show 4% of road cars sold were diesel. And it's been like that, 2, 3, 4%. In fact, I checked October's just before I came up here yesterday, and it was 3.2%, I think it was. Sales of diesel road cars are dead. The reason that's important for maritime is because maritime is the tail and the dog. In terms of fuel use, the tail and the dog is road car. The vast majority of diesel sold in the UK is for road cars, and that is winding down. These figures have been near to zero for 2 years now. Average lifetime of a car in the UK is 8-9 years. Therefore, half-life is about 4 years. And by the way, all the miles are done in the first 3 years when they're on fleet. So in the next year or two, we will start to see a nosedive in the amount of diesel sold in the UK. Now, Zemo is I'm not a fuel expert, really, a fuel markets expert, but Zemo do have such, and they've got some predictions for diesel. What is Port of Tyne and everyone else going to be doing when diesel becomes hard to find, which it isn't now, really? Although, have you noticed the black pumps at the petrol stations, the garages, beginning to be withdrawn, and they'll be replaced by electric chargers? Watch that space, it's going to happen. But what are vessel owners going to do, and ports going to do, when diesel in 10 years, in 2035, that's more or less good enough for engineers, 10 years' time, 2035, when diesel is sold in road cars is down by 2/3. What do you think the supply chain market's going to do? Question for you. IMO played a belter, I think, this year and in the summer, and they've come out with some new targets. UK and Fit for 55 in the EU are going to be revised. Our Clean Maritime Plan, I think, comes out in the new year revision. IMO are wanting a 40% reduction by 2030 in carbon emissions from shipping. What is Port of Tyne going to do to help that? And what is Port of Tyne going to do to react to that? Because 40% of your ships will be demanding another fuel by 2030. And 2030 is, what, 10 minutes away? It really is. It gets even more demanding, 70-80% by 2040. We need to think fast. We haven't got long, actually. Joe, you had a question. Well, what's the next fuel? And I get asked that a lot, and I don't know the answer. The point is that diesel and fuel oil are the perfect fuels. They're really, really good at what they do. All replacements are much worse, and they all come with many, many complications and problems. And I think we're not just facing a VHS versus Betamax. Who remembers the big video discs that looked like really fat CDs? Do you remember those? They came out a few years after that. Well, it's that and maybe DVD and Blu-ray, all of those together, because we've got lots of options, and I don't know which is going to be best. Right now, it's horses for courses. I do powertrain designs for some vessels where battery's correct, where that's the best answer. Sometimes it's hydrogen, sometimes it's methanol and ammonia. And let's face it, when we look outside, big players are making bets on all of those. My best prediction is we will see all of those fuels, hydrogen in various forms, ammonia and methanol. Those three will become important. It wouldn't surprise me if I come back in 5 years' time and find you are struggling to cope with all three of those. I think many ports will do. What's driving the demand for decarbonisation maritime? In the UK, I think it's got to be floating offshore wind. That is so big an opportunity. Hundreds of thousands of vessels will be required in Europe by 2030, 2035. EU announced a 135 billion euro project on floating offshore wind. That will need new vessels, and eventually all those vessels will be diesel-free. They'll be clean vessels. I don't think we've got the shipbuilding within Europe to do all that. I think we'll be knocking on the door at Turkey and Vietnam and other places to get those vessels built. Aquaculture, ferries, ro-ros, you name it. That's where the market's going to go. If you have trouble sleeping at night, there is a very large report by Marine Capital, but it's very worthwhile. It's a doorstopper, really. But those guys are capital investment guys, and they had a long, hard look at maritime, and they reported what they thought were the low-hanging fruit, the best ways forward. If you were UK government seeking a return for UK taxpayers' money, what would you try to shift to zero emissions first? And the answer was ferries and ro-ros, fishing and workboats, and particularly workboats to support Dogger Bank, Celtic Sea Power down our way, all those floating offshore wind developments. And the report's very good. It's got some insight as to why maritime doesn't get the investment attention that it perhaps deserves. Okay, so this is some examples of the stuff that we do. We're fuel agnostic. If you want to power your boat using a big rubber band, we'll help you. But usually our customers come to us and they want to replace diesel, and the question they ask is, well, what's best? And what's best from an engineering point of view, but what's best from an economic point of view? And that's our job, is to try to provide a solution that's going to work for them as a business. This is one of our designs, typical workboat. I think she was about 40 meters long, 400 tons. And it's a new build, and actually it's OS Energy. Now they operate on Tyne, I believe. They are a workboat charter, and we work very closely with OS for many years now, and that's what it looked like. Importantly, she's lighter than she would be with diesel, and I know you're going to find this a struggle to swallow, perhaps. It's lighter, there's more space, although the hydrogen tanks on deck are a pain. But it's a solution that really works versus diesel. This is the critical bit of data that we're able to produce for OS. There's an existing ship, Prince Maddox. She goes out of North Wales. Again, a workboat, some tools in the back. And this is the money. And pick your inflationary guess for diesel. Would 15% seem a bit high, maybe? But I'm sure 3% right now. Nobody would believe me if I said it's going to inflate at 3% year on year. The point is that some of our powertrains are not very good, but some of them are competitive with diesel. So it's economically competitive. It will work, and we will demonstrate that on Prince Maddox later, probably earlier next year, she'll come alongside and we'll actually drop our powertrain in there. And the next step is the regulator. But importantly, this is why OS Energy are going for it, is it is actually going to work for them as a business. Ships and vessels require ports to come back to load and unload cargo and humans, but also pick up fuel. What's that going to look like? I'm sure Port of Tyne has thought long and hard about this. You've done some excellent work. You've got the Green Corridor now, which is fantastic. I've stolen this from Rolls-Royce. Is this a laser? Oh, you can't see it. I've stolen this from Rolls-Royce. This is their idea, and you can go online and have a look around. And here's your boat coming in, and we've got some fuel cells, some hydrogen production, and fuel cells converting that to electricity. Or you could just be bunkering hydrogen, compressed gas, or liquid hydrogen, or indeed ammonia, or methanol. So this is all very different, I guess, for you guys in Port of Tyne. This is going to lead to very large change. Do you have the land to do this? Do you have the skills and competencies to get through the regulatory side to do this? These are all things I'm sure you're thinking about. We know hydrogen is going to happen in Antwerp, or has perhaps already this year. Methanol certainly has the first go at methanol bunkering in Antwerp, and I believe Maersk had a ship come in and bunker methanol over summer, and ammonia certainly is planned to be bunkering in 2024. Although ammonia in ports, certainly fishing ports, is a long-established thing. We've had ice production using ammonia, large quantities of ammonia, tons of ammonia in fishing ports for a long time. So a lot of that expertise about storing and handling ammonia already exists. Hydrogen and methanol, less so. Hydrogen is, of course, going to feature heavily in aviation, so there's an opportunity there to share some learning. And they're in the same position, I'll tell you right now, that they're in the same position as maritime. They don't have the skills. They don't have the training courses set up. They don't have large numbers of skilled people able to handle either compressed or liquefied hydrogen. So there's some opportunities there. This is something, I'll show you a little bit about what we're doing in the southwest, and this is where I'm quite involved. I'm actually involved in the design of the powertrains for these two vessels here. There's a multi-cat and a survey vessel, a steel multi-cat and an aluminium survey vessel. This is a project called Zero Boat, which we're trying to get off the ground at the moment, and we are having fun talking to investors, and that's a very difficult proposition to make clear to an investor what the returns are going to be on this. But this is a whole system ecology, and I think this is where you are in Port of Tyne, where we're going to be taking renewable energy, constrained electricity coming from floating offshore wind. In our case, Celtic Sea Power Array. In your case, you've got Dogger Bank. 2 o'clock in the morning, the grid's dead. Those turbines are still spinning, or they should be anyway, and they're putting electricity into the grid. What do you do with that? This is the investment opportunity, is to take that constrained electricity and do something useful with it, make green hydrogen. And that's our plan, to a 300 megawatt scale hydrolyzer eventually. We aim to hit that by 2030 in North Devon. Grid connection, oh my word, that is an expensive and difficult proposition, but you do need a big grid connection. There's an power station conveniently located to where the cable is going to come in from Celtic Sea Power, so that's very good. And then we've got the whole issue of charging. That's actually not so bad these days. That's been done a few times. But there's the issue of getting the green hydrogen, or in fact, at a later date, green methanol and green ammonia. How do we bunker it at the port? The port's very, very small at the moment. We'll need a new site. How do we get permissions from that? Fortunately, we have the council, who is a major landowner, of course, controls the planning process. We have them on board. And then how do we transfer that onto the vessels? And there's a lot. So SHYPS, I'll be very careful. SHYPS, SHYPS, was an EU Horizon project, which has recently ended, which Ricardo was in, I think. Yes, I'm looking at, I'm pretty sure Ricardo was in, Lloyd's Register was in, and they had some experience in this transferring of hydrogen to vessels. The idea is, do you swap containers empty for full containers, or do you pump the hydrogen across to the vessel? Even basic questions like that are not resolved, as I understand it. So that's an ecosystem of innovation that and investment opportunities that we're trying to get going in the Southwest. I think I'll skip the safety considerations. I think I'll skip those. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's what I wanted to say to you this morning.